Welcome to Frankly Speaking. My name is Onkgopotse JJ Tabane. We're coming to you live from Auckland Park here in Johannesburg at the SABC. And tonight we do some introspection here at home. The SABC is a contested terrain. Over the years, a lot of people have asked themselves whether enough has been done to make the SABC a public instead of a state broadcaster. The recent SABC inquiry by Parliament confirmed the worst fears when it comes to censorship, poor editorial policy implementation, as well as some terrible governance failures. Looming large over all of the problems was interference by politicians and self-censorship by some amongst us. The parliamentary inquiry laid all of these things to bear, and flowing from this was the environment that is really not conducive for robust journalism and a public service. Tonight we ask the question, is the SABC on the road to recovery, or are we going to experience more of the same? Let's take a look at some of the highlights from that parliamentary inquiry.
There's an unwanted culture and history of news censorship and or news distortion in the SABC newsroom.
What the GCEO, COO and CFO did was within their powers.
It is a very exciting opportunity for me to get an opportunity to contribute in stabilizing SABC, and of course working with the colleagues from the board. We're looking forward to really making a difference.
These are some of the voices that of course made us see the full extent of the damage done here at the SABC. On the one hand, people like the SABC 8 painting a very, very gruesome picture. On another, the outgoing board saying, no, all was well. But of course, now also we now have a new dawn, at least that is upon us, and to see whether we can get out of that trouble. To help me understand and analyze the state of the SABC and its vision for the future, my guest tonight is the chairperson of the SABC board, Mr. Bongumusa Makhathini. Let's go talk frankly to him. Thank you so much for making the time to talk to us. It's always a nervous experience. You're going to be talking to your boss, you know, about things that are happening here at home. But what is your understanding? I mean, you've been in office now for a few months. Yes. What is your understanding about what went horribly wrong at the SABC, both from what you learned from the inquiry and during your interviews at the SABC interviews, you seem to have really gone into that inquiry to try to understand what the problems were. And secondly, when you also arrived and obviously had to get a briefing and settle down to do the work for which you have been appointed.
What has really gone bad with the SABC is a total collapse of governance systems, a total disregard of policies and procedure, but also there was high level of basically people prioritizing their own interest over the interests of the SABC. You look at how decisions were made, they lack business acumen and commercial understanding. But also there was high level of victimization and intimidation for those who stood up for the truth and for the right things. So when you look at all of that, it's an organization that was basically losing credibility every day and actually financially also not doing well. If you look at the accumulated losses that SABC has suffered over the years, it was in really dire state.
What would you say about the state of governance now? I mean, you mentioned these things that, in fact, were part of the Public Protector's report. I mean, she had a scathing, assessment of governance in the SABC. Would you say that even in this short time, the board has managed to change that state of governance or not?
Certainly. I mean, if you look at the things that we've done, it's about providing leadership and taking accountability for things. I would want to give an example when there was an issue relating to the Department of Social Development, where SABC had done something that was in contrary to our editorial policy. As a board, we basically made sure that there was an investigation to uncover what had gone wrong, but immediately after discovering discovering that we had contravened our own policy, we took a decision basically to apologize. One, that's decisiveness. The second thing is to make sure that we put systems in place to make sure that people adhere to the guidelines and to the policies. So we've also created a sense where the employees of the SABC can feel free to do their work without fear or favor, knowing that the board is there to ensure that they are protected, but also having the executive team that is empowered to do what is expected of them.
Yeah. Part of what the SABC inquiry had to explore was the whole issue of the relationship between the Minister of Communications and the SABC board. I mean, they really told horror stories of really poor governance in that regard, or at least a very wrong relationship or power relations. How is that happening? Because your board, I mean, in these first 2 months or so, had to enter into almost a tug of war about the appointment of the COO with the then Minister of Communications and so on. What can you tell me about your relationship now with the current minister and how you intend to keep that together?
With the current minister, Minister Makhathini, we have a very positive and productive relationship, and she's shown tremendous support to this board and to support us in addressing some of the issues that we face. She's really committed to help us, for example, get help with the government guarantees. So the relationship is positive and is very productive. And I'm very confident that once roles are clarified, and everybody play according to their roles and within their mandate and run in their lane, we will be able to work together in a productive sense. And also, she's very clear on the need to turn around the SABC. Because if we all focus on turning around the SABC and doing what's best for the corporation, and I think that will align and help us to work together very well.
Part of the governance collapse, right, over the years has been instability in the board itself. You're already 3 men down. And you're not even past the six months mark. How are you going to, after painting all this picture, right, be able to deal with the challenges that are facing the SABC? First, you're already 3% down. You don't have a chief executive, right, who's also supposed to be a member of the board. Just give me a sense of why I must have confidence in this particular board to get it right.
Maybe let me start by agreeing that there's a lot of work to be done. And as a result of that, I realize that SABC needs total commitment from my side, for example, as a chairperson. And I made a decision to leave my BAT job so that I can be dedicated to my role as the chairperson of the SABC board. But also the colleagues we have in the board are passionate and competent South Africans who are really very keen to turn around the SABC. But you will know that as a board, we provide oversight and guidance. We need to make sure that the top-level positions are filled. And we've made that a priority for the board to ensure that we fill this group CEO, CFO. We already have the COO, and we are hoping to finalize with the interviews by end March. So we're hoping that we can have the CEO and the CFO starting latest May, June.
It's interesting there in terms of your own commitment, but of course that could also be another issue where the board seems to be too involved in the day-to-day because of the crisis that was there. If you looked at the interim board, I mean, half of the interim board would be here almost daily, on one meeting or another of some kind or another. How do you assure us there that even their governance will be observed, that the executives that you are going to be appointing will have the necessary cover to do their work, both from the politicians who, according to the inquiry of the SABC, were phoning them and giving them all kinds of instructions and threats, right, and from board members who were too involved with either procurement issues or even editorial decisions?
First, we start with employing and appointing the competent, strong individuals. If you look at the appointment we've made with the COO, he's very clear, he's very competent. This talks to the expertise, the experience, and the skills and the education. And also us as the board being responsible, that we're not responsible for the day-to-day running of the SABC, but we're here to provide guidance, oversight, but the executives are empowered to do their work. You would have seen, with how we've made decisions as the board, that the executive team is in charge, and we're there to support them. And as the board, we don't want to be involved on the day-to-day running. I've said this during my interview in Parliament, that as the board, we need to have our ears and eyes very open, but our hands should not be really involved in the day-to-day running, to avoid getting involved in things like procurement decisions, contracts, and so forth. We don't want to be part of that.
Just in terms of how South Africans view the SABC, you are the source, right, of information for millions of people every day. So there's a sense that there's a sense of nervousness around editorial policy. you know, whether or not the censorship that Mr. Kalata was talking about earlier on in that clip, right, has now since disappeared because you are now here as this board? Or is it an issue that, in your view, still requires some attention? There is a circular, floating around, signed by over 106 members of staff, saying that there seems to be the ghost of Claudi seems to be still hovering here in terms of some kind of a censorship, with people being told this or that or that. Are you having your eye on that particular ball?
Definitely. I mean, bringing back and restoring the integrity of the SABC is the priority for us. And that's why if you look at the appointments we've made, we've appointed the COO and the group executive responsible for news, because we are quite clear that the editorial policy and the adherence to the editorial policy is the most important thing. And we are aware of the petition that has been signed, and the group CEO and the COO and the group executive news had a meeting with the staff on Friday to agree on how best to deal with this issue, because we cannot leave that issue unattended. It is important for the SABC to be seen to be very objective and adhering to the editorial policy. And that's priority for us, and we'll do everything and anything in our power to make sure that we eradicate all the remnants of bad behavior and irresponsible tendencies when it comes to
the issue of blackouts. You remember there was a story about some policy that came from the top accolades of the SABC that shouldn't show violence, especially about the Vuane thing, etc., etc. That demoralized journalists who are trying to do a job. What would you say to me briefly before we go to the break about your assessment of the morale of staff here at the SABC?
I can confirm that when we came here, the morale was really, really the lowest. And that's why we've done everything possible to engage the staff and to keep them basically involved and understand on the journey that we're embarking on. And actually, I also want to express my appreciation for the SABC staff, which is a very critical stakeholder in our journey to turn around this environment. They kept SABC running. And for that, I want to thank them and commit as the board that we're there to support them, and we're there to make sure that we turn around with their support the SABC.
One of the biggest concerns with parastatals, not just SABC, is the issue of financial sustainability. And after the break, I want us to talk about that. Is this place bankrupt, or can it be sustained into the future? We're talking to Bongo Musa Makhathini. He's the chairperson of the SABC board. We're on Frankly Speaking. You can follow us on hashtag Frankly Speaking and tweet us at JJ Tabani at SABC News Online. Let's take a break.
This is your midday report. Good afternoon.
I will be faithful.
I assume as President of the Republic of Kenya.
Let's take a look at how African markets and currencies are performing now.
The central bankers say the success of Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies is just a bubble.
Breaking stories, detailed economy and sport. Tune into Midday Report every Monday to Friday from 12 p.m.
About that trending life, the looking good and all that slayage? Well, fear not, because Trends has all the fashion do's and don'ts for you to stay on point this upcoming season.
This film will be an immersive spectacle. You got Kong, that's 100 feet tall.
It tells this incredible story of man versus nature.
The iconic stage production by Mbongeni Ngema is back with a bang.
Sarafina is a classic South African production. I always choose to align myself with brands that I just love. Because when you love something, it doesn't become work.
Luxury is not built overnight, but it's an experience that comes with time.
Catch up with all the trends on Trends Saturdays at 12.
Our stories.
How do I begin?
Our lives. When all seems to fail, we will raise our voices a bit louder for our justice.
I went into absolute shock. My whole body was shaky. I couldn't hold a phone, but there he was. I couldn't believe the nonchalant that they were still in the area 2 weeks later.
And in times when the justice system is not able to help us with our individual battles,
I'm willing to do anything.
What are you doing? Nothing. Feeling sorry for yourself. No, it's not an option.
These are our stories on Cutting Edge Channel 404.
Welcome back to Frankly Speaking with me, Makhathini, JJ Tawan. My guest tonight is the chairperson of the SABC board, Ntate Bongo Musa Makhathini. Just in terms of the vision of the board, because everybody sitting with bated breath to say, what are these guys going to bring us? Is it going to be more of the same? What are the 2 or 3 top priorities of this board from a point of view of your vision to change this place?
There's 4 things that are strategic priorities for the SABC board with management. Firstly, is financial sustainability of the SABC. The second one is content and platforms, expansion on that area. The third one talks to human resources. And the fourth one really is about governance. Those are the 4 strategic priorities that we want to focus on. And that's what's going to turn around this place.
If I may pick on a few of those before I go to financial sustainability, this human resources thing that you're emphasizing. A lot of criticism about some of the changes that you are making, both on radio and television and so on, with people nervous, right, that there are too many changes that are going to be drastic. What do you have to say to those who may be concerned about those changes?
Reality is, if you want to have a turnaround, there will be no turnaround without change. And when you want to turn around the place, you have to review everything. So when it comes to human resources, we want to make sure that we review the talent that we have, that we give opportunity to those people who work for the SABC who are good. I mean, if you look at the GE News, she's an internal candidate. She's now GE Radio. And we also want to go out there in the market and attract other people who may be interested in joining the SABC. It's about really appointing people based on merits, based on the experience, the skills, education, and the expertise. And it is important for us to have the right people doing the right jobs. Because at the end of the day, it's about our people embracing change and being willing and agile to change with innovation. If you look at the broadcasting, there's a lot of changes. And when have our people being able to embrace that change and help us get this organization out of trouble.
And finally, on the human resources, how are you going to protect journalists who are working here from political interference? Because the stories are just legendary. I mean, people will tell you that during the elections, they'll be nervous to cover this party less than the other. They'll be nervous that if a minister is opening some school somewhere in the Eastern Cape, they must go, even if just to cut the ribbon, and they must feel pressure to cover that way. Can you just give me a sense of that the journalists can be free to do their work here?
What I can say, journalists are free to do their work. We're here as a board to protect them. And the key thing is people need to understand and work with the internal protocols. There shouldn't be anybody getting instruction from somebody outside the organization. Even for my board, the board needs to work through the CEO, the COO, and the CFO, and that's how the relationship should be. None of my board members should be engaging with junior members of staff, and I don't expect anybody from any political office to be giving instruction to the employees of the SABC, because that's where things go wrong. And whenever we have challenges, I expect the SABC employees to engage with their managers, and managers can escalate issues to the group executives and so forth. This thing of people going all over, expressing their discomfort and all of that, at the end of the day, it makes it harder for us also as a board to protect them.
Are we bankrupt?
Financially, as SABC, we're still in trouble. We are turning around, but it's going to take time. You must remember, JJ, that SABC was in trouble for over a decade. So an accumulation of losses over 10 years, poorly run place, no financial or business acumen is the manner in which decisions were made. So it won't be turned around over 1 year. It will take time. But I can assure South Africans and the employees of the SABC that we're starting to see some positive results in some cost saving that we've put in place. But of course, we also need to expand our revenue streams. I mean, when you're dealing with the financial sustainability, there's two things really that you do. You cut your cost, but the second thing that you do, you try to expand your revenue streams. And that's why we need to embrace and leverage the digital platforms that are, in my view, are an opportunity for us to be able to resuscitate this environment.
Do you need a bailout from government?
We definitely do need the bailout, because if you look, currently we're owing our creditors about, when I was looking at the numbers at end of January, we were sitting at about 557 million. That's how much we owe. And that's, for me, it's a liability that we're struggling to deal with. And that's where the first part of the bailout will help us settle that. But the second thing is, yes, we need to settle the creditors, what we owe, but we also need to invest in content and make sure that we create an inventory so that we can be able to invest for the future and turn
Before
around.
we go to that content issue, the public also owes TV licenses apparently worth of billions. Any strategy to make it easy for the public to actually pay those TV licenses, because they could probably come in handy in terms of dealing with your current cash flow issues?
Firstly, I want to thank some of the South Africans who are starting to pay their TV licenses. If you look at our numbers, we've improved by 16.5% in this period compared to last year. So there is some support that we're getting from South Africans. But also, I want to make sure that people support the SABC, because for us to be able to cover our public mandate, we need resources. Currently, we depend on licensing. That gives us about 12%, because only 3% comes from government. I mean, our public mandate sits up at about 4 billion rands, and really what we're getting from government is about 180 million, and it's not sufficient for us to service our public mandate.
About 3% of the total revenue.
Yes, that's what we get from government. Yeah. So the bulk of the revenue we get from commercial, which is about 85%. It comes from advertising, sponsorship, and other commercial partnership that we're driving. So those are our revenue streams.
Are you happy with the business development strategy that would then turn, the SABC's assets, airtime in this case, right, into a profitable enterprise?
I mean, I'm very encouraged by the changes that I can see being effected, in SAFM, Channel 404, and some of other platforms. And also we're getting traction on online. And in my view, we're going to the right direction. But for us to put a very compelling, comprehensive strategy of a turnaround, we need to get the government bailout. Guarantees. And that's why we were very excited and encouraged by the support we're getting from the minister to get the 3 billion rand that we need to be able to invest.
After the break, I want to talk about transformation. There are a lot of noise about 90% music and all kinds of things, and money being spent on other broadcasters and so on. I want us to reflect on that and how that is going to take us forward, on how the board will take us out of that quagmire. But on Frankly Speaking, we're talking to Bongo Musa Makhathini. After the break, we carry on with that conversation.
SABC is the official broadcaster of the 2018 FIFA World Cup Russia.
Let's cross over live to Griselda Lewis, who is standing by at the arbitration hearings.
But I didn't think about it at the time that people could be dying.
Let's update your sports news.
Get all the dominating stories locally and globally on Newsroom every Monday to Friday from 9 a.m.
Welcome back to Frankly Speaking. My name is Onkgopotse JJ Tabane. You can follow us on hashtag Frankly Speaking. You can tweet us at JJ Tabane. at SABC News Online. On Twitter, someone is asking here, Uncaptured says, your staff at SABC were disempowered for more than 10 years. Your policies are outdated and not benefiting the staff. When will you be correcting this? And also Modise says, how independent is the current board, or are they still receiving instructions from Lotuli House? Please will you deal with those also as you deal with this question about the stories we're always hearing that SABC has sold this family silver, MultiChoice is controlling the archives. You know, we do know that the Taudi got some, bonus out of selling these things, number one. Number two, there's a book out saying that ANN7 is getting our archives for a song. Can you just deal with those two things briefly? Just talk to the credibility of the SABC and how we're doing business with other partners in the media space.
Okay, let me start with MultiChoice. So actually, there were no archives that were sold to MultiChoice.
Okay.
So the deal we have with MultiChoice is a broadcasting licensing deal, where basically the licensing party has a right to broadcast for a limited period, and that deal is coming to an end, I think, in July this year. So archives were never sold to MultiChoice. That's not true. It never happened. We just have a deal with them, which is a licensing deal. When it's come to ANN7, we also learned in the last week or two from a book that was published that there were some archives that were sold to ANN7. As the board, we've taken a decision to have a forensic investigation being done, so that we can uncover really what really happened. Once we get that report, it will be tabled in the board and be submitted to the Zondo Commission.
Will this include this scandalous breakfast deal that was done with ANN7 as well? I mean, the thing was a waste of money by the SABC, wasting airtime, not charging for it, and having another organization charge other sponsors. It looked quite bad.
That will never happen under my watch. Corruption and deals that don't make sense to the SABC will not happen under my watch. So what has happened with that was cancelled, and it will never happen again. We are here to serve South Africans, to do the right things, and SABC is here to serve South Africans and not to serve other commercial interests sitting somewhere.
All right. Lastly, if we were to come here in 6 months, you'd have been here for a year, what should we judge? Just three things against which we must judge your leadership and your board.
I want to take what is sitting on our corporate plan. One, I want us to be judged on how well we've driven the financial sustainability of the SABC. The second thing is about talent, human resource, the talent that we bring. You can see the talent we're bringing. We're really injecting new ideas, new people with new expertise. That's important. Governance. We've got to turn around the governance of this place. And then the third thing really is to grow platforms and content, to make it more interesting, quality content that will make our audiences grow and grow our revenues.
Digital migration, is the SABC ready for the big switch over soon?
As the SABC board, we've taken a decision to play a more active role in the digital migration, because the truth of the matter is we have to migrate about 10 million households. So at the end of the day, it's important for us to be in the forefront of that, and working with the ministry, we really want to contribute, because we are the people that will lose the most if we're not really at the table and driving the digital migration.
Mr. Makhathini, thank you for your time and sharing with us so frankly your vision about the SABC. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
That was Frankly Speaking with the chairperson of the SABC board, Mr. Bongo Musa Makhathini. You can continue to follow the conversation beyond the show on #FranklySpeaking. Until we talk frankly again, may God bless you.